Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wa salatu salam ala Rasulullah. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's Jawahir al-Quran, the Juz of the Quran in spares. In this session, inshallah, we'll begin reading from Surah Al-Ankabut, the spider. Imam Al-Ghazali chose 7 verses from this surah, beginning with verse 41, which really speaks about mentions the spider and speaks about those who resort, who rely, who take allies other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They rely on help from sources other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deliberately. We don't talk about cause and effect. We talk about as a position they rely on. There's a certain notion of shirk there, and the image that we get is that such people who rely on other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's basically as if you are relying on a spider's web. And the Quran says that the weakest home is a spider's web, the home of the spider. Bayt al-Ankabut, it could be the seat of governance, of ruling of the empire, who are responsible for imperialism on a global scale. It might not look like the 19th century or early 20th century colonialism, but they still manipulate, they use their political and economic power to subjugate other nations, and they are usurping the resources of other nations. It's a sad story, for example, that Africa, which is very rich with the resources, could be gold, it could be diamonds, could be other precious metals, could be uranium, but they don't benefit from all of this. Foreign companies continue to benefit, and the locals, they extract gold and they are in abject poverty. It's worse. So the spider's web is very weak. The cobweb is basically the abandoned spider's web. This is, but the idea is, no matter how strong the son of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, the one who refused to hop into the ark, he did not want to be with his father. The ark, the ark was the only place where you could be saved in the flood. And it is mentioned in verse 15 here. Not the whole story, but the story of the flood and Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, Prophet Noah. His son, in a different context in the Quran, the son, when his father invited him to be on the ark, Ya Bunayya irkab ma'ana, his son said that he would resort to a mountain to save him from the flood. The mountain is simply an example of a spider's web. No matter what your alliances, your military alliances, Muslims should not rely on others, as simple as that. And of course, they cannot be really independent when they are divided. There's a need for a new Islamic civilizational paradigm, if you will, that would be good for Muslims and non-Muslims. The current international order is definitely tilted It is unjust. But we will, inshallah, once we get to verse 41, we probably will shed more light about the this example. So we said that Imam Ghazali was seven verses, 41 to 45, and then 56 and 57. But to begin with the beginning of the surah and see what themes do we have. The this surah, this chapter of the Quran, begins as follows. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون ولقد فتنا الذين من قبلهم فليعلمن الله الذين صدقوا وليعلمن الكاذبين. So we have three letters, the separate letters that are found at the beginning of many surahs of the Quran. Do people think once they say we believe that they will be left without being put to the test, trial, tribulation? We said tested those before them, and Allah in this way, and Allah will clearly distinguish between those who are truthful and those who are liars. It cannot be lip service. You say, I am a believer, and you will be tested. Today, I have watched Arabs and non-Arabs who reverted to Islam. Some of them, they have the most beautiful, wonderful accommodation by their families. I'll give an example or two. I met a young Italian young man in Tarim in Yemen when I visited Dar al-Mustafa. A fountain of spirituality. This is what Dar al-Mustafa is. I talk about Sufism. But that young Italian told me his story how when he became Muslim, his mother started cooking for him halal. This is, of course, in Italy. I would assume this is like a typical Catholic family. But his mother started cooking for him halal food only. And she would go to another town. Obviously, they lived in a small place. So his mother would travel to another town to bring him halal meat. That's one story. Others were disowned by their families. They were 100% boycotted. That's it. That's on one level. At the beginning of Islam, there were those who were tortured. There were those who were killed. Among the few people believed, and people were tortured literally in the heat, physically tortured. Some of them were killed, and it must have been extremely painful for the Prophet ﷺ as he was witnessing what the believers, the early believers, this nascent community went through. Literally, he would address those who were tortured and being killed. Have patience, O family of Yasser. You are destined to paradise, as they have been killed. And at one point, the Prophet ﷺ said that there were those who came before you that they were tortured in the following fashion. They dug up trenches for them. They were put in holes in the ground. They were covered with dirt, and then they were literally cut by the soul, and they would not give up their faith. It's not that you would wish this for yourself. There's a hadith which is sahih: أشد الناس بلاء الأنبياء ثم الصالحون ثم الأمثل فالأمثل. Those who are the most subjected to the test, the most difficult, the most physically, psychologically painful tests, they were the prophets. Then their good followers, the pious, and then the closer you are to them, the harder the test is. It's not usually not at all. It will not be an easy ride. You'll be tested according to the strength of your faith. The stronger you are, the stronger the test. And there's another verse in the Qur'an: أم حسبتم أن تتركوا ولما يعلم الله الذين جاهدوا منكم ويعلم الصابرين. And there are other verses, not that to the same effect. Do you think that you will be left alone and without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala know those who strive amongst you and know those who are patient? And sabr is in the face of calamity, tribulation. But when things become easy, kind of, you are relieved, you need patience even then. And it has been Imam Al-Ghazali in Kitab Al-Sabr wa Shukr, the book on patience and gratitude. He's attributed as saying to the companions who said that we have been tested with tribulation, with difficulty, with hardship, and we had patience. ابتلينا بالضراء فصبرنا. And we have tested with ease, with relief, and we did not have patience. Meaning, when things were, when things became the way they wish, they did not have patience. The goodies of this life, if you will, have this. You just don't use this statement to think that they went through what we are going through. But there will be tests. There are scholars right now who are in jail for advising, for saying a word of truth, calling for justice. We memorize the greatest form of jihad is a word of truth in front of an unjust ruler. إن أعظم الجهاد كلمة حق عند السلطان جائر. But the more accurate text of the hadith, كلمة عدل, not كلمة حق. Both are still, the one encompasses the other. If it's haq, if it's truth in the absolute sense, it's going to call for justice. If it's called for justice, then it has to be truthful. But that's the text. You call for justice. There was a scholar who simply called for clemency, like simply to release those who were jailed. Simply, there was nothing in other contexts. Those people should be rewarded, but they landed in jail. Or you can basically you can have safety and not say anything. That's so this verse basically it's the second verse. You will not be left alone. And if you look at the history of the prophets, all of them, with no exception, faced various difficulties. Some of them got killed ultimately. There were attempts on the life of some were killed. Sayyidina Yahya alayhi salam, Yahya ibn Zakaria, John the Baptist, if you will, he was killed. Jesus Christ, his peace be upon him, his cousin, there was an attempt on his life, but he was neither crucified nor killed. That's the Islamic position. The word of God, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to Maryam alayhi salam, to Mary. Many miracles took place at his hands, but always in the Qur'an, فَبِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ, by leave of God. There were those who were mocked, there were those who were threatened, and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ultimately had to flee Mecca after the being persecuted for 13 years, and his companions had two waves of migration to Abyssinia. Remember the story of the Negus Najashi, the king of Abyssinia, Habasha, Ethiopia today. And you can visit basically the place where many companions who passed away while they were in exile, and when they migrated, when they sought refuge in Abyssinia in Ethiopia. You can go and visit them, the graves of the companions who passed away and died while still waiting there in Abyssinia in Ethiopia. وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِهِمْ فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. We certainly tested those before them, and in this way Allah will certainly distinguish between those who are truthful and those who are liars. أَمْ حَسِبَ الَّذِينَ يَعْمَلُونَ السَّيِّئَاتِ أَن يَسْبِقُونَ سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ. Or do the evildoers simply think that they will escape us? How wrong is their judgment? من كان يرجو لقاء الله فإن أجل الله لآت وهو السميع العليم. Whoever hopes for the meeting with Allah, the meaning here is, let them know that Allah's appointed time is sure to come. He is the all-hearing, all-knowing. If it's coming, just think of it as happening. One of the things that will absolutely take place is one's death. You will die in the day you die, when there is no other day other than that, which means simply that one day you think that's going to be far in the future. You never know. One day you'll wake up and you might not reach the evening, or one day you will sleep and not wake up. One day is this life is temporary, and a meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is a day of judgment, a day of reckoning. Whoever strives in Allah's cause only does so for their own good. Surely Allah is not in need of any of His creation. وَمَنْ جَاهَدَ فَإِنَّمَا يُجَاهِدُ لِنَفْسِهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَغَنِيٌّ عَنِ الْعَالَمِينَ. Remember, whatever you do, and this is clear, for example, when you talk about offering the offerings during the pilgrimage, Hajj. which commemorates basically Sayyidina Ibrahim, Prophet Abraham's attempt to sacrifice his own son Ishmael. لا ينال الله لحومها ولا دماؤها ولكن ينال التقوى منكم. Y- the offering itself, neither the flesh nor the blood, nothing will reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's your piety, it's your action. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of all of us, of the sacrifice itself, of the universe. You talk about the time and space as a setting for the action, all created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you strive and it is for your own good. There's a beautiful statement attributed to Al-Hasan al-Basri about the notion of striving. إن الرجل لا يجاهد وما ضرب يوما من الدهر بسيف. A man, of course, it could be a woman in terms of this notion of jihad, would be in a state of jihad and he has never, not even a single day of his life, he has never used a sword. So it's not basically jihad as a military action, it's everything else that you need, where you need to strive. It could be in politics, could be in economics, could be in the social order, to try to preserve a way of life according to the Islamic worldview is a state of jihad, especially what we go through today. There are tribulations everywhere, and there are challenges to our way of life. Originally, it would challenge even. Originally, it would challenge Jews and Christians. There are still Jews and Christians who reject the same-sex marriages, who reject all wrongdoings, but there are many who succumb to the pressure of the society. Probably are worried about their place of worship being empty if they take a stand. A woman tried to bring to the attention of a young woman in Notre Dame in the United States that it's not appropriate for them to wear leggings to the church, saying straightforward that this would distract the young men in the church. The following Sunday, the young men also joined the young woman. All of them wore leggings because one woman had the courage to tell them, don't. إن الرجل يجاهد وما ضرب يوما من الدهر بسيف. So the reward will be according to how much you strive. A good deed might be rewarded 10 times, 10 folds, up to 700 folds or more even. ومن جاهد فإنما يجاهد لنفسه إن الله غني عن العالمين. And whoever strives in Allah's cause only does so for their own good. Surely Allah is not in need of any of His creation. In fact, أنتم الفقراء الله. You are in need. The word poor doesn't mean that you, in this case, it's not only those who do not have money. Every creature is in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As for those who believe and do good, we will certainly absolve them of their sins and reward them according to the best of what they used to do. والذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات نكفرن عنهم سيئاتهم ونجزينهم أحسن الذي كانوا يعملون. The following verse begins with honoring parents, and this is, inshallah, we will address in the following session. Until then, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.